You're finally ready to head to Cotonou, Benin Republic to have an experience of a lifetime. This video has all the information you need to effectively plan for your next trip. The tips shared here will help you save up to $100 or more per person and avoid extortion from corrupt officials. Planning is an essential part of every international trip, so it's essential to know that the trip might cost you more than you expected, and it is always better to go in excess than to be there and start looking for ways for people to send you money from back home. So keep that in mind. The naira is in the gutter. The documents you need, to be honest, if you're really set on going to Benin Republic, you do not need any other document than your NIN, and even that is questionable. I've seen people travel across West Africa with nothing, but you might want to get either your passport or your NIN and your yellow card. If you do not have your yellow card, you will need to pay at the border. There are multiple transport options ranging from going by bike border to border up to flights that cost almost $1 million naira, but a good middle ground would be getting a bus company or going to Mile 2 to get a car to the country. The last time I inquired at Mile 2 for a car to Benin was 25,000 naira per person in October 2024, so take that information with a grain of salt. My first trip to Benin Republic was in 2018, and at that time 1 naira was worth almost 2 francs or 2 sefa. But in the last 6 years, the naira took a heavy nosedive and got worse after the pandemic. So now 1 naira, or to make it make sense to you, 1,000 naira is worth about 400 francs, which is 1 naira to 0.4 francs. Incredible. And historical data tells us that it is likely to get worse. I would always advise anyone going to change your money to USD before you get to the border, and then you can get better rates when you're changing from USD to francs. This was my first road trip across West Africa since the pandemic, and I remember the experience pre-pandemic used to be very horrible, especially during when they were building a new border crossing at Seme. But finally, the new border is ready, and it seems up to standard and up to par with what is applicable elsewhere in the world. And I'm not gonna lie, the new border provided a smoother experience, at least from my point of view. A lot of these Nigerian bus companies showed you from whatever might be happening there, so you might not really know what's happening. I actually saw corruption getting to and from the border. All the different authorities, police, NDLEA, customs and all, stopping the bus, asking for bribes and essentially harassing people. But one thing that always stood out to me is that Benin Republic feels very coastal. Even coming from Badagry, where it's basically the same thing as Seme, it doesn't feel coastal, but the moment you cross into the Seme side of the border, it just feels very, I don't know how to explain it, but Lagos does not feel like a coastal city, even though we are by the ocean. If you are enjoying the video, then you should definitely subscribe and give this video a like. Thank you. Contrary to what you might believe, Cotonou and Benin Republic is very much worth visiting. For too long, I had only transited through the country to and from other West African countries, and this was the first time that I actually went to this city and country with the aim of spending at least a night and seeing what it actually had to offer. And I would be lying to you if I said that Cotonou isn't a beautiful city. Cotonou represents beauty, and I have witnessed the improvements over the last few years just traveling by the country. Whenever I travel past this country, it is always visible and quantifiable growth and development. Some of the spots that everybody going to Cotonou must visit are the Amazon Monument, the street graffiti right beside the Amazon Monument, Bab's Dock, and a plethora of different museums. My trip to Benin Republic was a short one. I planned to spend 2 days and 1 night in Benin before heading out towards the Togolese border. But on the first day, my friend asked me, "So are you going to Ouidah?" I was like, "What is Ouidah?" And they were like, "Oh, that's like the tourism spots in the country." And then I was like, Ouidah. And then my friend made plans to get a car. We went to Ouidah, so I couldn't do all the things I planned to do in Cotonou. But I'm telling you for a fact, if I hadn't gone to Ouidah, then my trip would have been a waste. You haven't been to Benin Republic if you fail to visit Ouidah. You can find the famous Snake Temple, the point of no return, where enslaved people were actually shipped off to foreign lands. And funny enough, this Ouidah port exported more slaves than the Badagry port, Zinzu Foundation, and lots of resorts. You know, when you get ads of resorts in Benin Republic, more often than not, they're in Ouidah. Ouidah is about halfway between Cotonou and the Togolese border. So if you're going towards Togo, you can have half a day there and then continue your journey. Moving on, you might have heard, but in case you weren't informed, let me do you the honor of informing you that Benin Republic, especially Cotonou, is quite pricey. During my travels across Africa, I realized that Nigeria is one of the cheapest countries to live in, and I still do not understand why. But Benin Republic and Cotonou are going to shock your wallets. You will not believe how much you end up spending each day, but it is quite a pricey country and city. So get comfortable with motorcycles. I know in Lagos and other major cities in Nigeria, taking bikes is not really allowed anymore, but you can get a motorcycle to literally anywhere. But you have to wear an helmet. So if you don't want to come in contact with other people's germs, you might want to take like a bonnet or something to protect your hair. Learn basic French, and whatever you learn, pretend that you are from around there. Use body language and just sell it. You can have a perfect itinerary in Cotonou and Ouidah for 2.5 days, starting from Friday morning. You get there by noon and then coming back by noon on Sunday. As we all know, French is the lingua franca of Benin Republic, and it will be in your best interest to know at least some basic French while you are there, but that is not really necessary if you do not. There is a sizable Yoruba population in the south of the country, so if you speak Yoruba in Cotonou, you might get away with not speaking French. But if you can have a perfect combination of broken French and Yoruba in the city, you can live like a local without sticking out too much. But one thing that shocked me is a lot of young people, especially young men, not necessarily young, but like middle-aged, 20s, 30s, 40s, spoke pidgin English, and young women too. And then I learned from my friend who is a Beninese. My friend told me that a lot of them used to go into Nigeria in the days where it still made financial sense to work. They would work for a couple years and then they'll come back. But looking at the way things are right, and most people do not do it anymore. A lot of people in the city speak pidgin English, and that really surprised me. If you're still here, then you're obviously enjoying this content. Why don't you do me a favor by clicking the subscribe button and liking the video? Here are a few ways you can save money while traveling as a solo traveler. First and foremost, do not travel solo. If you have friends that are interested in traveling alongside you, then you should definitely make that happen, because you get to share costs while living a better experience. For example, you and multiple people can get a very nice fancy Airbnb and pay half the price you would pay for a 1-bedroom Airbnb or an overpriced hotel rooms, because hotel rooms in Benin Republic are outrageous. When you're also going, you can get like a single vehicle from Mile 2 and you guys can go as a group. Collective bargaining always helps. I've gone to places whereby they name the price and we're like, yo, we see nobody else here, this is how much we're willing to pay, are you gonna collect it? The manager came out and they collected it. Most importantly, there's also safety in numbers. You want to go with people that you know, and you want to go with people that you know that if anything happens, they're always there for you. You can still have an amazing time while traveling alone, but I would always advise anybody that cares to listen, travel with your people. After 1.5 amazing days in the country of Benin Republic, the time finally came for me to continue my journey. I regretted not planning it better, because I 100% should have stayed longer, but I needed to get back on the road. So we went back from Ouidah to Cotonou, which was the other way. I got on a bus and it was a nice bus. The bus was heading to, I believe, was it normally, but it had stops over the way, so I was on the 4-hour stretch between Cotonou and Lomé, and due to immigration whatever, we ended up spending way more than 4 hours. To be honest, it was incredible. The corruption at the border was very, very awkward and different. I know there is corruption on other borders, but if you're traveling with Nigerian bus companies, they make that non-existent to you. Basically, it's part of the payment you are paying them. But yeah, after paying for the bus, as we approached the border, they were like, you need to pay X amount for stamping, and I was like, it was incredible. The corruption is an open secret. Everybody knows about it, and everybody knows the price. It's standardized. No cheating. Are you aware that you can support this channel by becoming a member or leaving a super thanks? Please do so if you can and if you're willing. Thank you very much. One thing I noticed from Nigerians that travel to Benin and other countries is there's a feeling of I'm better than them, superiority complex in a sense. You go there and you feel like, oh, this and that. If you are going on this trip, I would implore you to come off your high horse. I know you are Nigerian, you're untouchable. Remember the famous last words from Ireland, be humble way. Benin Republic is perhaps the most accessible country for many in southwest Nigeria, in fact southern Nigeria, to visit. And if you plan well, you can have an experience of a lifetime with the people you care about on a reasonable budget. But until the next video, your friend from the Ukodo YouTube channel wishes you love, peace and prosperity.